You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
So one thing we'd like to do on this program is, dig into topics that we have personal experience with. Yeah. Do you have any personal experience with buying a home?
Actually, now that you mention it, we're going through that process right now.
So, how fun. Joining us today is Jenn Rutherford, Vice President for Lending at Lutheran Federal Credit Union. Jenn, thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Tell us about Lutheran Federal Credit Union. What is Lutheran Federal Credit Union and what makes it unique?
So Lutheran Federal Credit Union, we are actually pretty new if you want to talk about, banking industry, credit union industry, the financial industry. We were actually established about 5 years ago. We wanted to bring the daily financial services that everybody needs, from checking savings to home loans, auto loans, credit cards, pretty much what everybody uses daily. We wanted to bring that to the LCMS community. So we do serve all LCMS congregation members, the congregations themselves, schools, and LCMS ministry organizations. So we pretty much are there for people and organizations within the LCMS, and we wanted to share the benefits of a credit union. A credit union is a little different than a bank because the ownership is with the members. I mean, it's definitely all of it's like the profit sharing. Everything goes back with the members. So that's really, I really do like that. And I love that we are all working with all LCMS community. It's kind of neat. I was with Lutheran Church Extension Fund. We kind of are in the same place. And then I moved up to Lutheran Federal Credit Union 5 years ago. So I've had the benefit to see how it's grown, how people have heard about us. And we have increased our membership from nothing when we first started. We have 4,100 LCMS community members right now. So really excited about that. We have, our tagline is good for you, good for the church. So good for you, meaning the members. And what we try and do is we try and offer, the lowest rates on loans. We also try and offer support, if you want to say that, there's a lot of people out there that are, like Sarah might say, hey, she's going through it right now. There are so many things that happen during loan programs, especially home loans, but like auto loans stuff. And people do kind of want to look out and hopefully trust the advice of somebody. And that's what we also try and do with the loan programs. We really want to say, oh, this looks best for you. This looks best for you. And then we always try and look out for, oh no, this would be a better deal. And that's kind of what I feel is a very unique situation. We do get to work directly with the LCMS community, try and help them through what we see as, a benefit. So that's my thought on that. And the other big thing that I know you said, uniqueness, it has been kind of really nice that we are based in St. Louis, but we only have the one office in St. Louis. And we are very virtual because we do have to serve the LCMS community across the nation. So we have all the nice technology, the mobile apps, the online, we have, where you could take a picture of your check and have it deposited. So it really helped out, now in these times where everything is shut down, the virtual or the technology that we do have really helped out with people. And if people still want to go in and get their money, we are part of the the credit union shared branching network. So we have 5,000 credit unions that you can actually walk into as a member of Lutheran Federal and still do operations and business there. Just say that they're a member of Lutheran Federal. And we also have 30,000 ATMs nationwide. So really, really, I really enjoy seeing the credit union grow and how it's expanded too.
Yeah, we've had experience with so many of those things, being able to pay off car loans and credit card loans and all sorts of things through LFCU. And now working with you for our first mortgage, it has been quite the experience. I'm sure everyone who has purchased a first home has stories. I've heard stories from so many people about this experience that feels like a bit of a rite of passage. What are your insights into buying your first home? What are some things that someone might think about if they have gotten their realtor and they're
Mhm.
looking at the market, which is crazy right now?
Mhm.
What are some of your insights?
So again, we usually just deal with the financing side of it because again, most people don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a house. So they don't have the cash. So that's when the mortgage loan comes in. Yes, it is. I would have to say the mortgage process and the home buying process is one of the most highly regulated things that happen. So it is very in depth. Um, the only thing I could really say is, especially like for a first time home buyer, I would always say you got your realtor, awesome. Start definitely looking for the mortgage loan, unless you have the full cash mortgage loan next, because the mortgage lender, what we try and do is go through all of the information that people give us. And then we can kind of develop, hey, where do you want to get a mortgage? And then we can tell them if it is going to budget or not. That's kind of one of the biggest things is people already find a house, unfortunately, and then they come to us and say, I found this awesome house and it's great, but they might not be able to budget for it because they forgot about the taxes or the insurance that are required on a house. And therefore they might have been, should have been looking for something a little bit less. So I would say, especially for the first time home buyer, if you are even thinking about purchasing, go and apply for your mortgage loan first. And then that way, and we would love to help you because then we could go through and say, okay, taxes, insurance, is there any homeowners association dues? So we could get everything in the budget and figure out if it's really affordable because that is a commitment for up to 30 years, you know?
Mhm.
So that could be there for up to a 30-year term. That's probably the biggest thing because then when we have everybody's information in front of us and we pull the credit so we could see what other debts are out there and we look at the income, we can kind of determine at that time, hey, this is really going to work. This is the amount that's good. And we can also give some other ideas on which mortgages would probably fit best. I mean, a mortgage for a church worker who's taking their first call and may leave in 2 or 3 years might be look different than somebody who's retiring and probably going to stay there for, the rest of their life. So that's kind of the different things we look at. We have different programs that we can look at. And so that's probably my biggest advice is make sure to try and always find your financing first before you go looking for that house, just so you have an idea of what's best for you.
So what are the steps then to figuring out that financing, to lining up that financing, to what's the homework you need to do to start finding the financing that's going to be the ideal match for you?
Well, there's lots of different websites out there. Everybody, if you type in mortgages, I mean, you can go out there. Obviously, if you were coming to Lutheran Federal Credit Union, we always ask you to apply online so that we can see what's going on. Having all the information is big, because then we can call somebody directly and say, okay, we have a 30-year fix. That's kind of your standard. I would probably say the vast majority of everybody in the United States usually goes with the 30-year fix or a 15-year fix. Those are the two major ones. But it all depends on where you're at in your life, where you're at in your budget, because a 15-year fixed mortgage payment is obviously going to be a lot higher than a 30-year because it's taking that entire mortgage amount and making you pay it off in half the time. But it saves you a lot of interest if you put it on there. So we do have a little bit of information on our website, just saying, hey, come with us. But usually, once you apply, talking through it with your mortgage loan originator is going to be your biggest thing, is because they can explain the different programs that are available, and what else, if anything else is acceptable, what kind of down payment. That's the other thing. That's one of the other big things, especially for a first time home buyer. There are programs out there, at least, and I'm only speaking on Lutheran Federal right now. There's programs out there for first time homebuyers with a minimum of a 3% down payment. You can even get that gifted from a family member. We also have some church worker programs. They're specific just for roster church workers that if their employing entity wants to give some down payment assistance, that's allowable with that too. There's a lot of different options, and that's why we always say, hey, your biggest things are find your financing, where's your down payment going to come from, and then also there's closing costs on loans. closing costs on loans, and there's going to be closing costs even if you didn't get a loan, because the title company is one other part that gets involved. So there's a title company that actually does the dispersing of it. If you're buying a house, the seller will come to the title company, the buyer will come to the title company, and the title company actually disperses the funds and makes sure that everything is all good and clean and transferring pretty much the deed from the seller to the buyer. So that's one more party that gets involved. The good thing is with your mortgage loan, we try and kind of step in and also work directly with the title company so that we can try and keep everybody on the same page. Yes, there are a lot of parties involved. But again, we try and put everything in writing to say, hey, here's what's happening next. Here's what's happening next. And we do try and do a lot of things behind the scenes, because if the poor buyer were involved in everything that happened, it does get a little overwhelming more than it already is. So yeah, the major things are financing, down payment, and then obviously researching different mortgage programs. That is all over the internet, or talking directly with your financing person, so your mortgage originator.
Yeah, there's a reason why I had to look up a flow chart in order to understand all of the people involved and and all of the things that are all happening once you hit that point where you kind of know where you're going and you know what your budget is. What are some of the different types of mortgages? I know you mentioned the standard was 30-year fixed and the first time home buyer. What are some of those options that buyers have?
Sure. Well, definitely the fixed rate is probably one of the most utilized, because your payment does not change, your principal and interest portion of the payment. There's also another part of the payment, which would be your taxes and insurance part. That can change, because the taxes are based by the county or your school district or whatever in your area. So that can change over time. And then the homeowner's insurance, again, the buyer or the homeowner gets to choose whatever insurance they want. So the premium may go up, it may go down, they can change, but that is also part. So with the 30-year fixed, I mean, you have your standard 15, 20, and 30-year fixed. So that those all go under, depending on how long you want to pay off the mortgage and how quickly you want to pay off the mortgage. Those are some of them. Those are very good if you have no tolerance whatsoever for change. If you have no tolerance, or if you know you're going to be in your home for the whole time and you're not going to be moving, yeah, the fixed rate is the way to go. Then there also are, within those fixed rate programs, there's the first time home buyer with a minimum of a 3% down. Then you can go 5% down, 10% down. There's all different rate structures, interest rate structures that go with your different down payments that you have with all three of those. Some of the other loan programs there is an adjustable rate mortgage. Those were very popular when fixed interest rates were higher. Rates, I mean, I've been doing this for 21 years now, and I've seen rates go anywhere from in the twos, which kind of they're at right now in the 15-year, all the way up to back in 2004 and 2005. We were doing a great rate on a 30-year fixed was, you were going anywhere from 5 to 6%. 7. So that was a decent rate at that time. So then is when the adjustable rate mortgages were a good option. If you were only planning on being in your home for, say, 4 or 5 years, or you knew you wanted to downsize when the kiddos moved out and went to college and you were going to get a new house, that was a good option. And how that works is, for example, if you're doing a 7-1 arm, so like that means it's fixed for 7 years and then can adjust every year after that. They're usually lower than a fixed rate. So that first initial 7 years is lower than the fixed rate. So if you knew you were going to downsize and move, that would be the reason to go with an adjustable rate mortgage, because it's fixed for that full 7 years anyway. So there's really no risk to you, especially if you were going to buy a smaller house in, say, 5 years. That's the reason to go with those. So.
Learning the lingo here. If you've never been it's really helpful and insightful. We're talking with Jenn Rutherford, Vice President for Lending of Lutheran Federal Credit Union. We have more to talk about here on the Coffee Hour. We're talking about buying a home and that lending process as well. You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? A living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
We're talking with Jenn Rutherford, Vice President of Lending at Lutheran Federal Credit Union, learning about that home buying process. And Jenn, I really appreciate the insights that you've provided, especially just what we walked through right before the break, the learning about the different types of loans. Let's talk about more about Lutheran Federal Credit Union. You mentioned mortgages for a couple of different types of mortgages, and including some specifically for rostered church workers. Who can borrow from Lutheran Federal Credit Union?
So anybody who is a member of Lutheran Federal Credit Union can utilize any of our services: checking, savings, auto loans, credit cards, and the mortgages. So as long as you're within the LCMS community, volunteer at an LCMS organization, a teacher at one of our LCMS schools, a member of any LCMS congregation, and of course, our pastors and our teachers, DCEs, our church workers within the account, they are eligible to be a member of Lutheran Federal Credit Union. So once you start your membership, which again, the membership is pretty much just giving us your information, and you have to open up a credit union required share account. It only takes $1 to open up, and we actually fund that $1 for you. So it's really just giving us your information, and so that we can make sure you're within the LCMS community. That's called our field of membership, which is a requirement for all credit unions in the United States. You have to serve only your field of membership. So and we've designated that as LCMS. So once you are a member, you're ready to go with any of our programs, and that is who can apply for a mortgage. We have a lot of people, just applying because they're looking around for a house, kind of what I talked about earlier. It's really nice if you knew how much you could afford if you were looking to buy. So even if you don't even have a realtor or have anything, you can still apply, and we can go through and say, hey, look, based on everything, here is what it looks like for you. Now, you're right. Our rostered church worker program, that is only available to the rostered church workers. That's going to be your ordained and commissioned ministers on the LCMS roster. It usually consists of, our pastors, our teachers, DCEs, DCOs, any called worker. They do have a special program because a lot of our called workers do move a lot. So we wanted to make sure that, one of the biggest benefits of that program is that no mortgage insurance is charged on those programs. Mortgage insurance is another factor that comes into financing. If you don't have the full 20% down payment, that is kind of like considered a standard in the financing world, then there is mortgage insurance that is charged. And on conventional loans, on regular loans, it does drop off after your loan balance gets down to a certain level. It drops off automatically, but it is there for a little bit, depending on how much you have down. The one good benefit of the rostered church worker program is even if you only have a 5% down payment, there is no mortgage insurance. So I feel that is probably the biggest benefit. And the reason that that specific program was made was because a lot of our workers would come out of, especially our ordained ministers would come out of the seminary, didn't really have too much to buy a house, but didn't want to pay that extra mortgage insurance. And then if they took a new call, they probably hadn't worked, within 3-4 years, they hadn't worked up that much equity yet. And therefore it just kind of be a constant rolling, cycle. So that specific program was made up to help that. But
That's a really huge benefit for church workers. Now that I fully understand what the effect of PMI is on a mortgage, that would be so great for church workers to not have to worry about having to deal with that, especially as you mentioned, they do tend to move a lot more than non-rostered.
Yes, we've seen that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another thing is credit score. What does the credit score impact have on mortgage and lending and all of these things that go into buying a house?
Sure, that's great. Yeah. So the biggest, I'm going to go back to Lutheran Federal because we have a fabulous tool on our website, and we wanted to put that out there because people were always asking, well, what if I do this? What if I do this? So we actually put it out on our website. So if anybody wants to go look at it, it's on our mortgage loan webpage. The good thing is it shows exactly the factors that go into a rate because interest rates are based on market rates out there and different factors. One of the main things is, of course, Sarah, like you said, credit score. Credit scores do vary. I mean, if you miss a payment, unfortunately, it's going to be hit for a little bit, but it can come back. Your credit score can come back and increase the more you make on-time payments after the, say, that missed payment. It also looks, credit score is also based on things like how much credit card debt do you have? How high of a credit limit do you have, and how much do you borrow on that? Sometimes they see it better. The credit scoring agencies see it better if you say you have $20,000 for some reason. Let's just say a number, $20,000 of high credit limit. Like you have a limit of 20,000, but you only borrow on every month, maybe 1,000 and pay it off. That's going to give you a little bit higher credit score than say if you had a $20,000 limit and then had a $20,000 balance. So
Hmm.
things like that all go into play, and the credit score is definitely a huge factor in mortgage loan rates. So that's number one. And on our website, it shows you on your credit score how it can affect. So it goes from if it's a 740 or higher, and I know these numbers to some people are like, what? Well, again, we tell you what it is when you apply with us, but 740 or higher is going to get you your best rate. Then it goes from 720 to 740 is going to get a little bit different, and it goes down from there. And there is actually a minimum credit score that is allowable. It usually you want to have at least a 620 or higher. There are some mortgage programs out there like FHA allows a little bit lower credit scores, but that is probably, you're right, one of the biggest factors of a mortgage rate. Some of the other factors are you purchasing? Are you refinancing? Or are you doing a cash out refinance? Those are all different programs that you could do with a mortgage. A lot of people right now are refinancing. It's not always just about buying because say they bought back in 2010 when the rates were higher. A lot of people are coming in now and reapplying for a refinance because they're saving a good full percentage to a percentage and a half on their mortgage. So if you're trying to get cash out using the equity in your home, though, that's going to be a little bit higher rate than if you're just doing a regular refinance or a purchase. And then one of the other biggest factors of the interest rate is how much do you have in a down payment if you're purchasing, or how much equity do you have if you're refinancing. So what's that value of your house, and then how much you're borrowing. That's what they call the loan to value. How much is your loan to the value of the house? So those are the biggest three factors, and it's kind of nice because you can play with that tool we have on our website, especially if you're refinancing and say, hey, how about if my house appraised for 210,000 instead of 200? What would that do with my loan? And it shows you the different rates based on that.
This is also insightful. We just have like about 2 minutes left. Any other insights that you want us to know about the lending for a mortgage or home buying? Anything else that you want us to know as we wrap up our time together today, Jenn?
I really don't have anything else because I know I talk a lot. I know I talk a lot, so I don't even know what I covered.
I,
But yeah, I mean, obviously if anybody has any questions, we are here. We'll kind of go through and talk to you, especially if anybody had any specific questions. But the insight other than that, it is a lot. I mean, it is a lot. The financing is a lot. So there's so many factors. I've worked with it so long that when somebody tells me, oh, I want this, I immediately kind of know where to go. It
Mhm.
is. It's stressful for somebody, especially a first time home buyer that hasn't went through it. But other than that, we're here, and a lot of stuff on the internet is out there about mortgages and home buying. But just definitely find somebody that you kind of trust and that you want to go through, because then you can ask your questions, and hopefully that person will be able to work with you to help you out on that.
Now, you mentioned earlier that many people being deployed right now or working from home because
Mhm.
of the pandemic. Are all the services of Lutheran Federal Credit Union still available during this time?
All the services are available, but our office is not open for walk-ins. There's appointments.
Mm-hmm.
So other than that, though, everything. So, I mean, even my daughter, it's so funny. And she's a teenager, so she got excited when she got her first paycheck from her part-time job.
Oh.
She's like, well, where do I do with it? I go, you take a picture of it on your mobile app and it goes in your account. She's like, great. So she was really excited to do that with her first pay stub. And, so yeah, you can definitely go into any of the shared branches that are open. I know a lot of them have those limited hours now, but any of them that are open, our mobile app has all of the check cashing features, all of the transferring features. We still have all of our wire transfers allowed. We are always here, we are always here via phone, chat, email, everything while we're open. So that's one of the greatest things, is that we had so much technology beforehand because we had to figure out how to serve the entire LCMS community across the nation, that when the shutdowns or mandatory shutdowns happened, it really didn't affect us too much.
Very good. What's the website to find Lutheran Federal Credit Union online?
It is www.lutheranfcu, and the FCU stands for Federal Credit Union.org. O-R-G.
LutheranFCU.org. Jenn Rutherford, Vice President for Lending, Lutheran Federal Credit Union. Thanks so much for all the insights on mortgages and home buying. We really appreciate you joining us today on the Coffee Hour.
I so appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.